Okay, so just to summarize where we are in the class. So we are on week 3, and last week we kind of covered. Last week we covered kind of a case study of my entrepreneurial journey over 25 years. It was 7 years at Opti, 7 years at Selectica, another 5 or 6 years at Dino. And then, we quickly went through 14 rules that Steve Blank identified as things that would constitute the entrepreneur's way of doing business. So these are the 14 rules. And you find that all the entrepreneurs that we're going to bring in front of you, they all encompass these 14 rules, maybe not all of them, 7 rules, 10 rules, whatever, because of, their past experience or past history. So, but I think what's most important is that we don't just listen to their story, but we try to understand how they're working the entrepreneurial way. So there's an entrepreneurial way of doing business, and then there is the big company way of doing business. So most of us, when we do our MBAs, when we take our jobs, we are going to join a big company. So we are going to work in that big company according to what they tell us to do. But an entrepreneur actually creates the company. And you guys are aspiring entrepreneurs and you want to create your company. So you really need to think and put yourself in the same shoes as how these other entrepreneurs that we are bringing in front of you have created their companies. And you see that, most of the entrepreneurs that we put in front of you have not taken any entrepreneurship course. And they all tell you that they made a lot of mistakes along the way. And I made a lot of mistakes in my first company. Second company was easier, third company was even more easy. But it's a continuously changing world. And with this entrepreneurship course, what we're doing is putting a lot of different entrepreneurial experiences in front of you. So the assignments for week 1, week 2, I said, we'll keep them till tonight. Okay? So 12 o'clock tonight, the assignments need to be in. After that, we start deducting, but you won't be getting 100% for your assignments. Okay, let's move to week 3. So week 3, what we're going to do is study something called business model canvas. So you'll find that there are lots of ideas that all of you will be getting for starting companies. Now, how do you know if something is a good idea or something that needs to change in order to become a good idea? And there is a formal set of things that we do in order to create a hypothetical business model around that idea. A company that's just on a piece of paper and it has all the elements of the paper of a big company, of a real company, but it's only on paper, and yet we work through the model and we try to put everything down on paper and see if it all hangs together, whether the business model hangs together. And this is probably the most important part of what I'm going to teach, which is, and if I can successfully get all of you to be very comfortable with creating a business model canvas for whatever idea you come up with, I think, I have achieved my goal. Because once you are confident of applying the business model canvas to whatever idea you come up with, you are on your way to, at some point becoming a successful entrepreneur. Okay, and then so we basically do some information about the business model canvas for about 15-20 minutes, and then we straight jump into Bhavin Pandya's case study and the startup that he came up with. Okay, very very quickly, business is an organization that creates, delivers, and captures value. So you're creating something of value for somebody, and then you're delivering it, and then when you capture the value, you make a profit for yourself and your friends. And the four main areas of any business, whether it was off-field with semiconductor business, whether it was Selectica with the configuration business, Dino with the video business, or Games 24/7 business, online gaming business. All of them will have four components. Customers, the offer, which is what is that thing that you're offering that customers want to buy for a certain amount of money. And then, what is your infrastructure, whether it's engineers to building systems, whether it's salesmen to selling systems, the infrastructure, or factory to build a product, infrastructure, and then the financial viability. Money has to come in, has to be invested, you got to get revenue from customers, and then you go ahead and deduct the cost, and then you have the profit for sharing with the investors as well as building the company for the next biggest. So all companies have these four main areas, and what we are trying to do in the business model canvas is to figure out what is the logic. Why does this company work? What is it about this company that makes it work? And we're trying to find out how this company is going to make money. That's the whole objective of creating a company that is profitable, right? We talked about the three key parameters of a startup for it to be viable: scalable, repeatable, and profitable. And so we are creating this blueprint that is going to be implemented by your organization, by your staff, by your facilities, by your manufacturing systems, by your partners, and how it will all work in order for you to make some money. So if you look at the complete startup process, initially you have the idea, then you think it's a good idea, so you write a business plan, and then you go and execute it. And most of the entrepreneurs that you're going to see here are people that have gone ahead and already moved into execution phase, where they're actually doing business, etc. As a startup, the hard thing is deciding to actually go and build a company. So the hard thing for a startup is to figure out what is a viable business model. What is something where the amount of revenue that you get is more than the cost you're going to get. You can repeat that process so that you can make this machine go faster and faster, and you can scale it up so that there is no limit to how big it can become. So we are only going to focus on the first two elements of the whole journey that a company would have. We're going to focus on what's called the search portion. We are searching, and almost every company will find that its first idea was not really perfect. There was something wrong with it, and they do something called a pivot. So it's like a control system loop. You do a pivot, you go back, and you make a small change or a big change depending on what feedback you got, and the people and the methodology for getting feedback is through customers. So customers are outside your organization, the future, the people who are going to buy your value-added service or product, and they are going to tell you whether you're on the right track or not. So you have a way of validating what you're doing with your company. Okay, so one of the things that I did last week was to give you the 14 rules that Steve Blank has given. And I want you to keep this in mind as you listen to Bhagat's story and figure out which are the things that Bhagat did or did not do which either helped him or he went down, get it back, had to change direction, get it right, and then move on ahead. Right? So 14 rules, and you should be thinking of that. Now the end goal, after the first two blocks are done, which is you found the right customer, the customer says you're on the right track, he's willing to buy your product, so you've validated it. Now you come to something called the go, no go decision. And for the go, no go decision, you kind of looked at everything and said, okay, I want to go and build a company. I want to drop out of IIT and just focus 100% on building my company, right? So you make that decision. And I'm not saying that, but so you're going to be very careful about jumping out of IIT because you've got your parents to worry about, you've got to worry about a lot of people who are going to be very upset when you do that. But anyway, you want to be very confident that the validation is done right. Otherwise, you're going to have a lifetime of regret without an IIT degree or a company, right? So what you'll do after your customer validation is write a business plan. You don't write a business plan when you come up with the idea. You write a business plan after you've done a lot of work, and that work sometimes can be done in 2 weeks, sometimes it can take 1 year, sometimes maybe 2 years, but I would expect that most entrepreneurs should be able to zero in after a whole bunch of pivots on a solid idea in about 6 months or 9 months. That's approximately the time that I would think that you either decide to go for it and write your business plan, or you say, I'll have to wait for the next idea to come up. And it's always a good idea to wait for the next idea to come up if you feel that you're not 100% passionate about what you're doing. So if you're not passionate at the start, it's going to become very hard, as you go down the road. Okay, so this is the end result, the business plan. So how do we get to a business plan that we feel so confident about that we're willing to sacrifice everything? We're willing to put everything on the line because we think we know exactly how to build a great company. So, in this particular business plan, so you go through this thing called the business model canvas. And this is something that you guys are going to have to memorize. And you can actually go to this particular website and print out the poster, and you should probably have 30 copies of it lying in each of your rooms, because you'll be going through a lot of these posters as you continuously evolve your product. And along with the posters, have a lot of yellow sticky pads, because since you're writing directly on the poster, you can just put a sticky pad, because you keep changing what the value proposition is. Okay, so you have something called the value proposition. Why does somebody want to buy a product? What is so unique about what you've done that is going to be of value? So that value proposition is for whom? It's for a customer segment. Is it all the 7 billion people on this earth? Or is it for only Indians? Or it's only Indians who've got more than 10 lakh salary income? Or is it for males? Is it for females? Is it for school children, old people? Is it for educated, uneducated, farmers? I mean, all kinds of segmentation is going to, you'll have to do that in order to figure out for whom your value proposition is relevant. And you'll hear from Bhavan as to what his market segment is. Anyway, so once you've figured out what segments are going to be most interested in your product, and these could be customers, can be people, or organizations. So for when you're selling a consumer-oriented product, obviously it's individuals. When you're selling a business-to-business product, like I was selling chips, I was selling it to a business. I'm not selling it to individuals. But somebody who sells a PC, like Michael Dell, you're selling to an individual. You can also sell to an organization. You can also sell to an individual. So you have your market segments. And then what is your relationship with the customer? Is it a one-to-one? Is it mass marketing? Is it a web relationship? Is it automated? I mean, what is your relationship with that customer which you use to communicate your channels? Which is, how do you get your customer? In my particular case, sometimes I went through my own salespeople. sometimes I went through a distributor who carried everybody's chips. Sometimes I went through a sales rep who was limited to only a few companies. Sometimes I went direct marketing, like Michael Dell did. Or with my video conference business, I went online marketing. So there are many, many different ways or channels by which you can get to the customer, and you have a lot of choices. So on the right-hand side, it's all about customer. You know, customer segments, customer relationships, customer channels. On the left-hand side, and it's all C, starts with C. All three of them start with K. So it's key resources, or key activities. What are the things that you have to do? You have to engineer a better game. You have to engineer a faster chip. You have to make more widgets. So what is the key activity that you have to get involved with in order to get that value proposition delivered properly to the customer? What are the key resources that you need? You need the brightest engineers. You need the cheapest labor. You need somebody who, you need the best salespeople. What are your key resources for getting that value proposition? Who are your key partners? Who are going to help you? You know, if there's a software company in the US, do they need to outsource to an Indian company in order to get the software done? So key partners. So three elements on the left-hand side of the value proposition which are used for delivering the product, right? And then at the bottom you've got two, which is cost